I think I can just about say good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to welcome all of you eminent guests to what I hope would be a very, very interesting and informative lecture, but also the start of a which we hope will grow, partnership between the Rajasthan All India Services Pensioners Association and the Rajasthan International Center. And so to hand over the program to the people who are collaborating with the Rajasthan International Center, may I invite Narendra Sisodia ji to please come on stage. Please, sir. And while he's coming on the stage, couple of housekeeping announcements. Please keep your cell phones off and do not take photography or move around that disturbs the speakers and the panelists that we have. Sisodia, sir, please hand over to you for the evening.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A very, very warm welcome to this event today. It's a matter of special privilege for us to welcome you, all of you. Normally in Jigyasa talks, we have a very limited audience, mostly members of the All India Services Pensioners Association. But it's such a delight to see people from all walks of life coming today. It's a real joy, it's a real honor. I see many of my former colleagues, Mr. Sachdev, Dr. C.B. Sharma, many of the distinguished people here, Shri Arun Kumar ji, our former president, Mehta Saab, Khemawat Saab, of course, Shri Goel, who's also the host, but also in a way a guest to Jigyasa talks for the first time. So it's a real delight. Also, I am delighted to see that there are a number of ladies who have made the time despite International Women's Day today. Let us congratulate them. Let us give them all our best wishes on this wonderful occasion. I was just telling Mr. Kanavi, who's our guest speaker today, if there are any women tech entrepreneurs from India. I Googled, because that's what we normally do, and I found a number of names, but of course in his history, a more authentic contribution has been made by a certain lady about whom he will speak. But I saw names of people like Roshni Nadar Malhotra now, Roshni Nadar Malhotra, who heads the HCL Technologies, Neha Narkhede, also Padma Shri Warrior. Many of these people have done exceedingly well in the world of tech. So women are not behind, and let us celebrate their achievements. Also, I'd like to welcome our young members of our audience today who have probably come from Bhamasha or MNIT, all budding Sundar Pichais and Satya Nadellas. It's great to see you all. I mean, these people have really contributed to the growth, and I'm sure some of you who aspire to set up such startups or work in the tech world would find an opportunity, and the story that is going to be narrated by Mr. Shivanand Kanavi today will be of great inspiration and motivation for all of you. So once again, a very warm welcome to members of Rajasthan International Center, members of the All India Services Pensioners Association, and other very, very distinguished guests. A special welcome, of course, to Mr. Shivanand Kanavi, who's a tech historian who served in a very senior position as Vice President in Tata Consultancy Services, which made a great contribution to the IT story of India. In the initial stages, Infosys and TCS perhaps made the most significant contribution. So he was closely associated, and then became a professor at the National Institute of Advanced Studies in Bengaluru. He's He's a very distinguished author, a thinker, and a historian of tech industry. So we are all looking forward to listening to you, sir. Let me also say that he had a harrowing day yesterday, traveling all the way from Igatpuri. When he reached Mumbai, only 10 kilometers away from airport, he faced a traffic jam and unfortunately missed his flight, but he had to stay back at the airport and finally landed here, to our sigh of relief. So, a great welcome to you. Um, uh, Let me just say a word about Jigyasa, which actually was set up in a colony here. One of our civil servants, Mr. Arun Kumar, and a professor from university, Mr. Mohanot, who's unfortunately no more, they set it up as a voluntary effort to promote lifelong learning. And this is what, after some years, when this couldn't be managed at that stage, we in the association took it over, and we have been looking after it for last 4 or 5 years. Our modest effort is to spark curiosity, to promote discovery and share knowledge, because lifelong learning is very important for any society. Knowledge is very important for any society if it wishes to be developed. That is our mission. And we are really delighted that Rajasthan International Center has collaborated with us. In fact, they've been the host, and without their facilities and their generous support, it might not have been possible for organizing such an event. Finally, before you start, let me say that this story is really, what does one attribute this development to, this fantastic contribution Indians have made to the global tech world. Of course, Mr. Kanavi will be giving his own view, but I think something which might remain unrecognized, some unsung heroes in this story, are the Indian parents. When you ask them some years ago, when children asked their parents, what are the career options, they said there are only 3 career options. That is engineering, engineering, and engineering. As a result of which today perhaps we have the largest pool of software engineers in the country. And in fact, they say that tech giants in Silicon Valley, when you ask them, when you ask their engineers or entrepreneurs or other senior executives, when they are asked what departments are important in their on enterprises, they say there are 3 departments which are most important, and unfortunately technology is not one of them. One is HR, human resources. The second is finance, and the third is Indians. So that is the kind of joke which prevails in the Silicon Valley. I have taken enough time. I once again welcome you. It's wonderful to see so many people and such enthusiasm for this talk. And I would now request our president of our association, Sri Umesh Sahay, to kindly come on stage, and also Mr. Kanavi to kindly come on stage. Just want to say that this event would not have been possible without the very active support of the team from RIC, which Rakshat led, and all his team members. They put in a lot of effort to do this. And of course, our own team, led by Mr. Rajan Mathur, our secretary. So please let us appreciate their effort once again. Thank you. Mr. Sahay.
Good morning, friends. In the series of Jigyasa talks, today the talk will be delivered by Shri Shivanand Kanavi ji on the topic How Indians Won the Silicon Valley. This is a very interesting topic. Shri Kanavi ji is a great personality and we rarely come across such a brilliant and highly decorated biodata as that of Mr. Kanavi. Right from theoretical physicist to economic consultant to business journalist and to writing a book, everywhere in every field he has excelled like anything. Shri Kanavi was born in Dharwad, Karnataka in 1953 in a family of highly accomplished Kannada writers. He is a theoretical physicist from IIT Kanpur and Northeastern University, Boston, and has carried out research at IIT Mumbai. He has published several research papers in peer-reviewed international journals. After teaching and academic work in theoretical physics at various universities and IITs, he became an economic consultant from 1984 to 91 and turned the business consultant journalism from 1992 to 2004. For 10 years, from 2004 to 2013, he worked as vice president in TCS, Tata Consultancy Services. He is a widely traveled person. He traveled in India, US, Canada, Mexico, UK, France, Germany, China, Japan, Italy, Poland, Taiwan, and Singapore, etc. He has authored a highly acclaimed book titled Sand to Silicon, The Amazing Story of Digital Technology, published by Tata McGraw-Hill in 2004 and Rupa and Company in 2006. The work was highly appreciated by leading scientists and technologists across the world, including former President of India, Dr. APG Abdul Kalam. The book has been translated and published in Kannada by Government of Karnataka. It is being currently translated in Marathi and Bengali. He has edited book Research by Design, Innovation and TCS in 2007. The book was released in February 2007 by none other than our ex-President of India, Dr. APG Abdul Kalam. He is one of the most knowledgeable writers on Indian IT, manufacturing, nuclear, and space programs, and he has been widely quoted in the Indian and international papers press as a subject matter specialist. He was awarded the prestigious Madhu Valluri Award for journalism for the year 2004. He has been lecturing widely in IITs, NIAs, IISc, IEEE, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, AIR, and TV, etc. Besides science and technology and Indian industry, his interests include political economy, Indian history, darshan. He continues to contribute columns frequently in the media. And he is currently adjunct professor in the National Institute of Advanced Studies, Bangalore. So now I will request Kanavi to please deliver his talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Just past noon, but we can still say good morning, I think. All of you came on a very exciting day, International Women's Day. So greetings to all the women of India, women of the world. And I'm very happy to be here talking about this subject to a very knowledgeable elite audience from Jaipur. I've spoken extensively in various institutions and public and all that on this topic because I thought, and even the Tata Sons at one time thought, that what have Indians done of fundamental significance to this modern technology? That needs to be known because we are all consumers of technology. We use our mobile phones, we use computers, and we use the internet and all that. But what have we, and also we have heard about all these, engineers working in the Silicon Valley, engineers working in the Indian IT industry, and literally now they are into millions. It is estimated that more than 5 million people in India are working in the IT sector, and it is growing. And the world's leading corporations, all of them, at least now about close to 1900 of them, have set up their R&D centers in India from across the sectors: IT, telecom, chip industry, pharma, even aerospace and all that. And that is, they themselves have employed more than 1 million Indian engineers, and it is growing. In fact, this year they hired these multinational companies R&D centers, which are nowadays called GCCs, Global Capability Centers. They have hired more engineers and scientists than the Indian IT industry. That is because they are saying that is a talent we are finding. There is no other country where we can find this kind of talent. And many of them don't give out the figures because they'll get into trouble in their countries. For example, IBM has more engineers in India than in the US, and so on. Many of these companies have more engineers working for them, both in the business part of it as well as in the research and development part of it. So if you look at the number of patents being filed, large number of patents being filed by Indians working in India, both for Indian companies and also for multinationals. IBM files, Texas Instruments, Intel, all these companies are filing a lot of patents from India by the research being done. Of course, the patent rights go to the company, but the Indian engineers are the ones who are contributing to that. In fact, we have been talking about getting a jet engine, right, from General Electric. And most people may not know that General Electric's one of its biggest R&D centers is in Bangalore. And it does a wide range of research, including aerospace research. And it is said that 40 to 50% of the General Electric's aircraft engine design is actually being done in India, in Bangalore. And we are asking them to transfer technology to Hull, right? So anyway, so this is a situation now. India is very well integrated into what is called knowledge economy, knowledge supply chain in the world. So every company from South Korea, Japan, even China, Huawei, has a big center in Bangalore for the telecom research and so on. And so India is well integrated into this, and I'm not going to talk much about that. Neither am I going to talk much about the people who became successful as entrepreneurs. Some people became billionaires, some people became millionaires by doing startups in Silicon Valley. They became very high net worth individuals and so on. Neither am I going to talk about them. Nor am I going to talk about people who became CEOs of tech companies, like you mentioned Satya Nadella in Microsoft, or Sundar Pichai in Google, Shantanu Narayan in Adobe, Arvind Krishna in IBM. All these are Indian CEOs, right? Indian origin CEOs. In fact, all of them studied here and went there. They are not even second generation, third generation Indians. So then what am I going to talk about? I am going to talk about, as I said, try to give examples. It is obviously not exhaustive. There are many more, and the list keeps growing. But I will talk about maybe 30, 35 individuals who made fundamental contributions, and very little is known about them. This is the thing okay. Okay, this is something. When I was in Business India, we decided to check out this is 99, 2000, when internet boom was happening. It was also called dot-com bubble, etc. later. But at that time, large number of Indians actually became very successful as entrepreneurs in the US. Okay, and Indian IT industry in India also, as software industry was coming up just after the Y2K issue. But hardly 2 or 3 names were known. Vinod Khosla, Sabir Bhatia, Kanwal Rekhi, some 2-3 names were known. And in fact, Fortune magazine, as you all know, is one of the leading business magazines in the world, had published a focus report in 99 talking about Indian mafia in the Silicon Valley. Okay, okay. So even that, left-handed compliment, and had mentioned these 3-4 people. So our publisher, Mr. Advani, decided that we should there must be many more. So why don't we send a group of journalists to US, travel extensively, and identify these individuals and interview them and profile them. And the result was this special issue of Indians at USA, how high-tech Indians won the valley. So partly the topic of my talk, as the title has been borrowed from this, and we found 70 such individuals. Okay, and we profiled them in this special issue, and it was maybe many of you may be familiar with Business India, which was a pioneering business magazine in India, and it used to have a whole number of sections: corporate, government, macroeconomics, all sorts of things, company issues, and as well as some technology, manufacturing, etc. But this issue of almost 200 pages was exclusively meant for profiling these individuals who were successful. But they were successful in the marketplace as entrepreneurs. And many, almost all of them had either sold their companies, built startups and sold their companies at astronomical values, or some of them even went to the market and became established companies. Okay, then after this, the question arose that in fact one of the leading executives of the Tata Group, he congratulated me, sent me a mail saying it is a very good thing and all that. I was part of the team which put it together, this issue, and traveled for 1.5 months, town to town in the US, because when we talk about Silicon Valley, it's a metaphor. Silicon Valley is not a geographic area. I mean, though there is something called Silicon Valley, if you take from San Jose to Palo Alto in the Bay Area, that is normally called Silicon Valley. Starting from Stanford University, you can say, and coming down south to Berkeley University. That is a stretch. Most of these tech companies are headquartered there, or they have their research centers, etc. But when we talk about Silicon Valley today in the world, it is a metaphor. That is wherever innovation is happening. And of course, primarily innovation in the digital technologies, but also in pharma and various energy and various other things as well. So, when we went around, for example, around Boston, has one of the best universities in the world. Harvard is there, MIT is there, and so there are 10 more universities are there. There is in fact, I think it is called Route 128, if I remember right, that where lots of these tech companies are there. In fact, Bose, the Bose Corporation, you must have heard of Bose speakers and all that, which was also established by Professor Amar Bose, is right there, headquartered there in Boston. So we went around Boston, New York area, Connecticut, Washington, etc. Went to Dallas. People are in Dallas nowadays. Lots of Indians also in Atlanta area, and then went to the West Coast and up and down the West Coast. So that was the result. But the question he asked me, this Tata executive, was that this is all fine, feel good stories, but what about fundamental contributions to technology, okay, which are lasting? Because you know that 2000 was a boom, stock market boom, both in India and in the US, and 2001 was a crash, right? So many billionaires became millionaires, millionaires became paupers also. Right? So net worth is not really a measure of your contribution. So what about the fundamental contribution? So I said, okay, that's a good challenge. So I'll give you a project proposal. So I presented a project proposal to the Tata Sons, and it went through several presentations, and finally Mr. Ratan Tata okayed it and took it, said that we will support the research for this, because the product, whatever you're going to find out and write about, will be inspirational to the Indian youth. And this was in 2002. And they're preparing for the Tata centenary in 2004. So they said by that time, if this project is done and ready, then it will be part of the Tata centenary project and so on. So that was very kind of him, because we do not have in India people who will support research projects. It's okay if you are an academic in the university. There are some government institutions, ICSSR in social science and so on, so where, who might fund you for writing a book, some contingency grants and so on. But we do not have independent corporate or any other kind of institutions which will fund research for a non-fiction book. You go to a publisher, they'll say, give me a manuscript, I'll publish it. And I'll give you 10% royalty. But what about, a project like this? I mean, I ended up interviewing about 300 technologists all over the world. Okay, and I have about 157 CDs full of the interviews with them. Okay, and spent about 16 months researching on that project and finally submitted the manuscript to Tata McGraw-Hill at that time. And it was published in 2004. And this is the paperback edition which came later, 3 years later. That is a hardcover edition. It was titled Sand to Silicon, Amazing Story of Digital Technology. Now this is actually out of print long back. Now it is being sold for astronomical sums. Used copies are being sold on Amazon. So just yesterday I was having a discussion with the publisher. Why don't we publish a revised edition? Update it also. It's almost 2 decades old. So some changes have happened in the technology, not too much. Okay, don't believe all the hype. Fundamental technology changes very slowly. It is just given new names, and to create new buzzwords. So now anyway, I put it up on the internet. Anybody can download it, the PDF copy. And it has been translated into Kannada. Oh, by the way, this is the letter I received. I was pleasantly surprised from President Kalam from the Rashtrapati Bhavan, saying that he liked the book, which was fine, very nice of him. But his PA could have written it. But obviously, PA had not written it because he mentioned which page and which chapter and so on and so forth. So obviously, he had gone through the book. So that was really very kind of him, encouraging of him. And this is the Kannada edition, which was published by Government of Karnataka, slightly updated in 2016. And as you mentioned, now 2 gentlemen have come forward to translate it into Marathi and Bengali. And I'm waiting for somebody from Hindi to collaborate with me. I'm ready to help them in every way to translate it. Because obviously it explains the technology and also talks about what Indians have done in that to some extent. Okay, and okay, this is as far as the background to this, what I'm talking about, where I got the material for this. Okay, because when I started working on it, there were 2 or 3 goals that we set ourselves. One was, what is the story of this digital technology? What is digital technology? Okay, in the 70s, early 70s, when I was in IIT, I had used a computer. As a physicist, I had used a computer to do some calculations. But what is a computer? How has that evolved? And those days, IBM 1620 used to occupy half the stage, right? And which we had to punch cards and give the program. And 24 hours later, we come and it will say syntax error. That's all. The one-line output used to be there. We used to go home and, go through again all the cards and correct it and come back and give it. And it will take milliseconds to execute. But then it was not an interactive system. Those mainframes were not interactive system. All that interactivity came much later, and then came the PCs, and then the networks, and then the internet work, which is called internet, and so on. So how this technology evolved and went out of the high-tech labs and high-tech engineering to ordinary people, and what were the revolutionary things that happened in that, which made it possible, made it accessible and affordable for ordinary people. That's when revolution happens. A revolution means that there's an exponential growth. And exponential growth happens when it is not only useful, but it is affordable. And we have seen, it is something called, you might have heard about it, something called Moore's Law. Okay, especially in the semiconductor industry. Gordon Moore, who was one of the founders of Intel, he made an observation. A law does not mean, that is some, like a Newton's law or something. It was an observation he made, said that the way the semiconductor industry is growing, that the processing power of the chip will double every year, he had said. But that has not been true. It has been about 1.5 years. Every 1.5 years, the processing power has doubled. And also, along with it, the cost per transistor and the cost of that processing power has also fallen. So that is why there is an exponentiation. The power is increasing and price is falling. This is unheard of. right? In any other commodity, in any other, even manufactured goods, you'll see some level of prices falling as competition comes in, innovation comes in, etc. But not such a drastic thing. And this is the unique thing about electronics and this, and then the resultant digital technology associated with it. Okay, the soft side of it and all that. This is unique about this. Okay, this is another book I wrote. This again was released by President Kalam on innovation and research that has been done in IT. I took the case of TCS since I was that time working in TCS and looked at it. And by that time, when it was released in 2006-7, already TCS had done 25 years of R&D. In fact, it is a unique company, not because I worked in it, but because when TCS started in 1968, J.R.D. Tata established it, there was no Intel, there was no Microsoft, there was no Google. It was in fact one of the first IT-related companies to be established in the world, not just India. This was 1968. Okay, so and very soon after, they even established a R&D center, which is even more interesting, because it's one thing to do some programming and some projects and earn some money, rupees and dollars or euros or whatever. But other thing is to actually research in that and come up with new tools and new innovations. So, in fact, even though this was published in 17 years ago, 2007, 18 years ago, I have already recorded number of things which they had done in artificial intelligence in the 80s and 90s. The kind of tools that developed today, we talk about software writing software, right? These are the kinds of tools they were developing in the 80s, 90s and 2000s. So, only thing is, they are the kind of people, who don't talk much about their work. But that work in software engineering is unique, and that is what has created a situation where India is at the leading edge of the software development. And not because Indian engineers are cheap, it's a labor arbitrage, as I say, or because they know English and all that. Because these are common things which Westerners say, or even some Indians say, that Indian IT industry is successful. Why? Because there's a wage difference between US and India. Then everything else should go to Sierra Leone or Bangladesh, right? Wages will be even lower. Or in fact, or if you just look at number of engineers, today we talked about how many engineers India is producing, but China is producing even more engineers. But China is nowhere in the picture in the software. In fact, China very much wants to learn software engineering from India. And in fact, when the Chinese PM visited India in 2005, Wen Jiabao, and he visited TCS, and I was part of the TCS delegation, and he was saying that, if your software and our hardware together, we can, we can make it Asian century. Okay? Maybe Xi Jinping may not say that, but at least Wen Jiabao said that. Okay? So, and they were rolling the red carpet for Indian companies. Literally, they have built cities, empty cities. I visited China in 2004, and we built one tower, and we call it IT Park, and we are very happy about it. And they have built cities like that, and 30, 40 cities like that, which are empty, with all parks, gardens, highways, pavements, everything, maybe even cycling routes, but nothing there, empty buildings. And they are saying, we'll give you free real estate, come and set up your software companies here. And only thing is, they want their engineers to be trained in our companies. So there is always a very high turnover, what we call in the industry as attrition rate. So whereas in India, if it is 8%, 10%, 12%, there it used to be 24, 25% right from the beginning. That means it is a well-planned thing for the Chinese to send in people, get them trained in Indian companies and take them out, and put them into Chinese companies. But even despite all that, though they have very good IT companies, they have achieved very many other things. Even in software, like nowadays, there's a lot of talk about AI and all that. But in software programming and development, the biggest IT company in China has about 30,000 engineers. And you know how many engineers are working in TCS? 6.5 lakh. It is the next biggest after Indian Army and the Indian Railways. And Infosys and Wipro, each one of them have 2 lakh, 3 lakh and so on. So if you look at the kind of scale that Indian IT has built up over the years, it has become unbeatable. Okay, it's not easy to replace that. So that is the reason we created a human resource infrastructure and the skills necessary for that. I'll talk about it a little, a little more later. That what are these things which made this happen? That which is different from the 70s when we used to sit and write a program in Fortran or COBOL or whatever, and that was it, right? And we're very happy that we solved a problem. But today, thousands of people work on a project, so it is like a factory. It's like an assembly line. So we have done what Henry Ford did in automobiles or what Toyota did in automobiles later. We have done that in software services. We created a software factory, and every part of it, from components to modularity, quality, standards, everything that you can say what manufacturing followed has been now done in services and especially IT services in India. TCS made fundamental contributions to that in the beginning itself. Then, of course, Infosys, then Wipro and HCL, all these others contributed later in the 80s and 90s. So we have created a certain skill set which is not easy to replicate. Okay, including project management skills, and so on. It's a middle-level managers. How does a team work in it? Because one brilliant engineer writing an algorithm is one thing, but how do you make 1,000 people work together? How do you how do you bring in modularity that whatever piece this person has written should fit with what this other person has written? And they should both be writing in the same way, using the same logic, right? And not each one trying his own method and his own approach and all that. This is what is called converting an artisan-like activity to an industrial activity. That's why it's called engineering, software engineering. It's not just software. So that is where Indians have excelled, and that is the reason. Doesn't matter, the British press used to call us cyber coolies. But today, the London Underground, the entire UK's National Health Services system, their NAT grid, their national, energy grids, their gas grids, electricity, everything is run by Indian IT. London Tube works on Indian IT. Okay. So anyway, so this is all something we can be proud of, and of course we know that we are importing about roughly $130 billion worth of energy. Coal, gas, crude oil, even sometimes petroleum products. And we have no alternative to that, right? We are energy deficient. But because we have Indian IT, and we are exporting about $200 billion worth of Indian IT services, that is our oil. And that is how India has been able to overcome this whole energy crisis. Okay. So this is the economic significance of that whole thing. And we can be proud of what Indians have done in the US and all that, but how it has affected our own life, how it has affected trade, transaction, governance, even our medicine, our education, all that is you can see it. You are all, half of you are of my generation. So you know what it was like in 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and how it is in the 21st century. And how even in 5 years, 10 years, things are changing. Right? Whereas when I speak in IITs, people don't understand that you had to go and stand in the queue to book a railway ticket. Whole night, people used to be in Churchgate and VT, and especially migrant labor used to come and towel bicha ke so jate the udhar. Right? And today you are in your mobile phone with your laptop, whatever, you're able to book a ticket, book an airline ticket, do. And of course now you have the UPI and all kinds of transactions, monetary transactions you can do, transfer from one person to another person, you don't even need to go to the bank, right? And so on, right? So it has really revolutionized. But when I talk about where we started, it is totally for them it is blank. Because they are born in a mobile generation, they are born in a internet generation. And if I tell them that when I went abroad, I had to go to the Central Telegraph Office and book a trunk call to US, and and 3 minutes, 3 minutes में आधा time इसमें ही चला जाता था कि can you hear me, and उतने में मतलब operator will cut it and say 3 minutes हो गया. Okay, ₹200. Abhi now we are sitting with our WhatsApp calls and video calls with with anybody, anywhere, anytime communication, right? So we know what we have witnessed a revolution. Those are living a post-revolutionary period, you can say, of course, which is also changing fast, but we have actually witnessed a revolution. So, at least majority of you, I think, can understand my sentiment and my excitement about this. So, this was the scope of this project. That what is this technology, how it has evolved, what Indians have contributed to it, and what it can do to India, ordinary Indians, And so that was the scope, and that's when I worked on that. And okay, now before you get there, to the individuals of the present 20th century, let me talk a little bit about what ancient Indians and medieval Indians contributed, because that you can say is foundational to the how computers work. Most people don't realize it, that of course a zero, without zero and the decimal system you can't have arithmetic. Anybody can try using the Greek letters X, V, I, L, C, M, D and try doing arithmetic. Right? Add two numbers and see. Whereas the decimal system totally created arithmetic, you can say. That is why Greeks hardly did any arithmetic. People talk about Greek mathematics, but it was mostly geometry. And again, very idealized Platonic geometry, right? Points and planes and lines and, and later, of course, Cartesian things and conic sections and things like that, parabola, hyperbola, all these things, right? But hardly any arithmetic. Counting. We call mathematics, for them, mathematics was metaphysics. For us, it is a very practical thing. Ganita. Ganita means actually counting, right? That's what you need for agriculture. That's not what you need for trade and commerce. That's not you need for ordinary, in our everyday life. And that's what our mathematicians developed. And they created the number system, the zero, and what is called the place value system. As you know, right? That 343, what does that mean? 3 in the beginning is different from 3 at the end, right? The 3 at the end is only unit. And 4 in the middle is 40. And 3 in the beginning is 300. So this is called the place value system. And this totally, in modern day language, we say polynomial representation. We call it polynomial representation of a number. 343, 3 into 10 to the power 2 plus 4 into 10 to the power 1 plus 3 into 10 to the power 0. So basically 3, 4, 3 are the coefficients of a polynomial expansion of a number, if you want to talk in modern mathematics terms. But our children learn it right from the first standard, second standard and start doing mathematics, right, arithmetic and all that, right? So in fact, one of the greatest mathematicians, if you look at the 20 great mathematicians to come up, one of them was Pierre Laplace, and he said that time, it is Hindus that gave us the ingenious method. Of course, Hindus those days, Europeans used to call everybody across, in India as Hindus. So it is Hindus that gave us the ingenious method of expressing all numbers by means of 10 symbols, each symbol receiving a value of position as well as an absolute value. An important and profound idea which appears so simple that we ignore its true merit. And why I am saying this is that without addition there is no computer. All that the computer does is add two numbers. It doesn't even multiply. It doesn't know how to multiply. So if we say multiply 35 by 60, it will add 35 60 times. But it does it so fast that you think it is, there's something magical in it. Basically, it is an addition machine. Okay, that's why this system of adding, of course, it uses a binary system, 0, 1, etc. But the idea of a carryover of a decimal system, so the carryover happens in the binary also. The same logic is later Leibniz generalized it and brought in the binary system. Okay, then another thing, it is important that when you talk about a logic, which is closely related to mathematics also, we say every question has two answers. Rather, Aristotle said that. Okay, there is a true or false, yes or no, right? So, but we know that in life, there are so many questions which do not have Yes or no answers? Right? Will Indian economy do 8% this year? Or 6.5% this year? Okay? Optimistic. 6.5% is an optimistic estimate this year, GDP growth. So if somebody says Indian economy will do 6.5%, then yes or no? Can you say yes or no? Maybe, perhaps, maybe 6.4, maybe 6.2. You take a poll of economists, you'll get a whole range, right? So many questions of quantitative questions and even qualitative questions, of course, have gray answers. There is no black and white. But if you follow the Aristotelian system, which of course the yes, no, 0, 1 is what is adopted in the normal computers, the binary Boolean logic that is used, right? But how do you deal with questions which have intermediate answers, anywhere between 0 and 1, right? So, for example, modern probability theory talks about it, right? India winning, what are the chances of India winning the Champions Trophy? Right? It keeps changing, if you see that. Somebody will say 60-40, then slowly, depending on who is bowling or who is batting and how they are doing, it keeps changing right there on the bottom of the television screen, right? So probabilities are talking about something between 0 and 1, right? So that is not accommodated. The idea of probability itself is something different, something new, compared to the old 0, 1, true, false system. But and first, probability theory came in, of course, for initially for gambling purposes, but later, Iranian engineer in Berkeley University, a professor called Lotfi brought in what is called a fuzzy logic, okay, and developed systems based on that, and nobody believed it. In fact, his own department head called him, asked him what did you smoke, you know. Even he called it the cocaine of electrical engineering or something like that. Okay. But so Americans didn't accept it, but the Japanese accepted it, put it in their microwaves and washing machines and everything. And some others also accepted it and put it into armaments. It is what is called adaptive control systems and so on. And the Americans did not know anything about it, that at least not in their defense systems. And they learnt it the very hard way. In 1979-80, if you remember, after the Iranian Revolution, when some of the Iranian youth had surrounded the US embassy and taken them hostage, so there was, how do you release them, how do you get them out? There was this whole issue. Diplomatic things were not working out and all that. So the Americans decided to try a commando operation. During Carter, when the Carter was president. So they decided to send commandos who will land in the desert near Tehran and then go and do something, what was that plan, I don't know, details of that plan, that somehow they will get these people out of the embassy, do a commando operation. But nobody has ever heard of it, right? Why? Because all those, most of those helicopters crashed in the deserts of Tehran. Because their control systems could not adapt themselves to the heat and dust of Tehran desert. So the Americans learned the hard way that the control systems should be adaptive, and that comes out of fuzzy logic. So later, of course, they started using that and all that. But if you ask Lotfi himself said, I learned it from the Eastern logic, he says. What he means is basically Jain and Buddhist logic. Okay, the Shadvad and Saptabhangi of the Jain logicians, which gives multiple answers for a question. It doesn't say yes or no. It says maybe, perhaps, maybe not, maybe and maybe not together also, and so on. It's called a multi-valued logic. It's called multi-valued logic. And similarly, Buddhists have something called Chatushkoti. Okay, so, but anyway, so this is just an incidental, not directly related, but how ancient Indian mathematical logical ideas have influenced modern engineering and modern technology I just wanted to mention this. Similarly, if you go further, Aryabhatta, Brahmagupta and Bhaskara. This is the Bhaskara 1, who was more or less contemporary of Brahmagupta. Later came, of course, Bhaskara 2, much later. So all of these people developed a certain way of solving the problem. Forget about the particular contributions each one made. in mathematics, but the way of solving a problem. You do this, you will get the answer. Okay, so systematic way of if you do this, you will get the answer. Okay, and they used it to solve equations and all sorts of things like that, right? But then the Arabs were thrilled by these developments because they had never heard of these methods, because only thing that read up, that translated Greek texts, some of the Greek texts, the Arabs actually retained the Greek knowledge, ancient Greek knowledge. All the Europeans had forgotten about it. And then, but the Greeks had nothing equivalent. Greeks were talking geometry and philosophy and something else, right? So the Arabs were impressed by Indian mathematics. So they said that what is this method? So one of these mathematicians, himself who was a mathematician, his name was Al-Khwarizmi. He came from the Khwarizm province, and he read, translated Aryabhatta and Brahmagupta's systems into Arabic. And he wrote a couple of books. This is called Kitab al-Hisab al-Hindi, how Indians do calculations karke, where he explained the Indian system. And then second book he wrote, Al-Kitab al-Muqtasar fi Hisab al-Jabr wal-Muqabala, what we today call right hand side, left hand side, how to balance in solving an equation. And when these were translated later in Europe into Latin, that algebra became algebra. Okay. So, and what he was, and the Europeans forgot what he is saying. He is saying this is the Hindustani method. This is the Indian method. So they just called it Arab numerals, and this is something Arab thing. So anyway, but this method of solving step by step and getting the answer, which was followed by Aryabhatta and Brahmagupta, Al-Khwarizmi explained that method. So the Europeans called it Al-Khwarizmi's method. So Al-Khwarizmi's method became algorithmus, and today we call it algorithm, right? And if you if you are an IT person or a computer science guy, then every day you'll say algorithm 1,000 times, as if it's some Ram Nam or something like that. Right? You get up and start saying algorithm, right? And that algorithm is actually what is the Indian way of solving problems, mathematical problems. Similarly, later in the medieval era period, we see three major mathematicians from Kerala, Madhava, Nilakanta Somayaji, and Jeshtadeva. So they started writing infinite series expansions for trigonometric functions. Sine, cosine, tan, arctan. Why? We still don't know fully. Okay. Some people say it helped in the maritime navigation, because where if you are going to depend yourself only on the if you can measure the angle, to observing a star and all that, then using trigonometric equations you can work out navigation system, celestial navigation system, which was not known to anybody. In fact, Vasco da Gama could not find India. He landed up in Madagascar or something and found some, they say a dark person led him to Kerala coast. That dark person, we don't know who he was. Maybe he was an African, maybe he was an Indian. Okay. But that means, he could not actually navigate. He could not, he didn't know how to reach the Indian coast. So it's possible that they were developing some of these things had applications in navigation. But anyway, they wrote down this infinite series, and then the way the infinite series were structured, they were convergent infinite series, that you can stop after 3 terms, you can stop after 4 terms, depends on what accuracy you want. Suppose you are calculating pi. Children say, okay, 3.14 is pi. If you want the next one, they'll say 3.142. If you want the next one, they'll say 3.1419, and so on. So it depends on what accuracy to what decimal place you want. And that comes from the summation of the first few in that infinite series. Because it's the later terms become less and less significant. But if you want that accuracy, you can go. You can go to the 10th term, you can go to the 100th term also. Depends on what accuracy you need, right? So that method of rounding off 3.142 is 3.14, right? This rounding off, ignoring that 2, is called zeroism. And this is what a computer does. When computer does numerical calculations, it doesn't draw curves. It gives numerical answers. And in the numerical answers, it will do approximations. It will cut off somewhere. Okay. So actually these ideas were actually developed, zeroism and whole even numerical methods and approximations. You can see them developed by these medieval mathematicians. So I am mentioning this because this is the method we use while using computers for scientific calculations, for all kinds of calculations, because everything is numerical in computer. Later you draw a curve based on that. The computer doesn't generate a curve. Okay. Whereas in pure mathematics, in only some equations you can get what is called an analytical answer, right? Where a function, you get a function, not just some number. That if you follow that number, what is the curve? That you literally have to join the dots. Actually what you get is dots, not the curve, right? And that is a computer output. But that whole thinking, that philosophy is actually what comes out from this old ancient and medieval mathematicians. So this is all I wanted to say about what has contributed in terms of ideas by past mathematicians and how they are being used today in computer science. Now we'll come to 20th century, or at least 19th century. Start with 19th century because the story starts in 19th century of digital technology. And the first person to get a patent on what we today call a solid state device was our own Indian Jagdish Chandra Bose. So I'll start with talking about a few outstanding Indian contributions and individuals. Each one has a long story, so I'll have many slides, so I'll try to be brief, and later maybe we can talk during discussion time. Semiconductors and devices, first one was Jagdish Chandra Bose. He who showed how to send electromagnetic waves and receive it. Most people think Jagdish Chandra Bose contributed to finding that the plants can feel. Plants have some, some life, some kind of nervous system and so on. It is true, he did that. But people don't realize, and of course today electrical engineers all over the world realize, the IEEE is an organization of electrical and electronic engineers all over the world. It is the largest professional organization with more than 500,000 engineers, top engineers in the world as members. Today IEEE recognizes Jagdish Chandra Bose's contribution for what is called microwave engineering. So he created microwaves, how to send them and how to receive them. And what Marconi did was used his invention in his radio and got a Nobel Prize. So this was the first Nobel Prize that Indian missed was Jagdish Chandra Bose. He should have got, or at least shared the Nobel Prize with Marconi. And it's not that he was sitting in Calcutta. He not only demonstrated in Calcutta, but he went to London and demonstrated it also. And one American gentleman apparently came to him and said, you have to patent this. The Jagdish Chandra Bose said, what is patent? I don't know what is patent and all that. Okay. So he said, no, you should patent this. So in his hotel, he pestered him. So finally he filed a patent application and he got the patent in 1901. So it is the first solid state patent. First semiconductor patent was actually gotten by Jagdish Chandra Bose in 1901. And this is the patent, US patent, J.C. Bose, detector of electrical disturbances, 1901. Okay. Anyway. Now I'll talk about another person. He's a graduate from IIT Madras. Now he's in US, in North Carolina, Jayant Baliga. And he started working on a different type of transistors. See, if you look at the transistor, first of all, came up in 1948. Bell Labs developed it. And they didn't know what to do with it, by the way. And when they gave the press conference in New York, people asked them, what is its use? They didn't know. So they said, maybe we can use it in hearing aids. That's it. Okay. Because technology forecasting is a very hazardous job. Most of the time, you'll come out wrong. Because technology has its own dynamics, and economics mixes with it, and then how it grows, you can't predict it. So everybody who has tried forecasting on technology has failed. And practitioners have failed. Forget outsiders, who are writing newspaper columns and all that. So that's why please don't ask me what artificial intelligence will do. I'm I'm protecting myself from your questions. So what happens is, in modern electronics, you start trying to miniaturize the transistor. When you miniaturize the transistor, what was earlier, about this big, 1 inch or something like that, which was first fabricated by Bardeen, Shockley and Cooper and not Cooper, Bardeen and Shockley, Brattain, I think, three of them in Bell Labs, and that was germanium transistor, and they didn't know how it will be used, but later it was miniaturized. Today, on one in one chip, which is maybe less than a square millimeter. Actually, chip size is very small. Okay, square millimeter millimeter how much it is, right? So square millimeter you can put millions of transistors. That is the level of miniaturization you have achieved. Today we are talking about nanometers. Nanometer is, 1 millionth of a centimeter. Whereas, 10 to the power minus 9, right? And a human hair is about 80 microns. A human hair is 80 microns, okay? So 80 microns is 80,000 nanos. And we are talking about 2 nanometer the latest chips which are being tried out in Taiwan and all that, they are out there, 2 nanometer level. Okay, so that is one trend, miniaturization. Why? Because you want mobility, you want more processing power in a small place, and any electrical device produces heat and it needs power. So you want to reduce the power supplied to it so that you can carry it. You can have a small battery and you can put it, right? You already have a mobile phone. Now, if you didn't have miniaturization, if you didn't have chips and semiconductor industry, if you had made a mobile phone using the old valves, remember radios used to be made by valves. That is the beginning of electronics, right? And if you made, somebody actually calculated it, if you made a modern mobile phone using valves, it will be as tall as Qutub Minar, and it will need a 5 megawatt power plant. Okay, so this is why modern electronics has miniaturized, to consume less power, to produce less heat, waste less energy in heat dissipation, right? So that is one end. Lesser and lesser currents can be used. Smaller and smaller transistors can be used. But we also have applications where you need large currents to be manipulated. They are called power transistors. And he worked in power transistors. And Jayant Baliga, he created what is contributed. When we say created, somebody is the father of this, father of that, don't believe that. Because those days are gone. That when you could say Edison created this bulb and Graham Bell created some thing. Today, thousands of people work on one technology, and all across the globe, and so on. So it's very difficult to say so and so created this. Okay, but you can say made significant contribution. If you see that, he made significant contribution to a new type of transistor which is called IGBT, integrated gate bipolar transistors, and they are high, not microamperes but thousands of amperes. It will manipulate thousands of amperes, even millions of amperes. And where do you need it? You need it in bullet trains. That kind of things. You even need it in your hospitals. When somebody has a heart attack and his heart has stopped, you put those paddles, right, and give him a small shock. And we hope that the heart will revive, right? So, there you need his transistors. So, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry now. And he made the fundamental contribution to that, Jayant Baliga, power electronics. Umesh Mishra, he's now in University of Santa Barbara, he's from IIT Kanpur. Today, most of the time we talk about silicon transistors because germanium is unstable. Nobody uses germanium now. People went to silicon very early in the chip industry, in the transistors. And then from silicon and adding some impurities to it and all that. Then people went to gallium arsenide to get better results, particularly in solar panels and other things. Now they have gone to gallium nitride, and he is one of the leaders in the gallium nitride. And gallium nitride has uses in defense, in radar, in even your mobile base stations and all that. Okay, so he is one of the leading authorities in gallium nitride. So I'm just flashing a few individuals who have done fundamental contributions. Now next, if you look at the chips, one important early contributor is Pallab Chatterjee from IIT Kharagpur, who was working with Texas Instruments, and he thought of new ways of building, packing more and more transistors in the same chip, right? So what he did earlier, they used to have a plane. On that, you'll have a circuit. So he said, now can we build a what is it called? Multi-storied building instead of a plane, right? Instead of huts everywhere, can we build multi-storied buildings, one story after another, and with basements also? Okay, and so layer upon layer upon layer of different semiconductor deposits. So that is called trenching. Okay, and he was one of the pioneers in that. He developed it and he was recognized for that work in the US semiconductor industry, and also he contributed in another way. In the 80s, the Japanese suddenly started pulling away and going ahead of the Americans. So Americans got worried, right? Americans always get worried when somebody goes ahead of them, right? That's why they always talk about the Sputnik moment. And today they talk about DeepSeek as another Sputnik moment, right? Because the Chinese came up with much cheaper artificial intelligence. So when they got worried that the Japanese semiconductor industry is going ahead, they wanted to know what is it that the Japanese are doing, which our industry is not able to do. So the White House, the US president appointed a commission, and he was also part of that. He and another professor in Stanford University called Krishna Saraswat, together figured out what is it that the Japanese were doing. Obviously, Japanese will not allow you into their labs and their actual manufacturing, but they were able to figure out what was happening, and then those techniques were then later employed in the US semiconductor industry, and they recovered. Okay, so his contributions to semiconductor industry are multiple. Vinod Dham, you must have heard of him. Media has called him the father of Pentium and all that. And as I mentioned to you, don't believe in father either, all that. He was the general manager of the project in Intel, which developed, thousands of people worked on it, which developed Pentium. And to this day, one of the most, widely sold, maximum numbers of the chips which have been sold belong to the Pentium class. Okay. Atiq Raza, he's a Pakistani engineer in Silicon Valley, very friendly to India and Indians, and he has also encouraged a lot of Indians in the startups that he has brought in, he has developed, and he has contributed a lot to the to the chip industry as well. And I'll not go into the details of some of these technical things, but AMD was one of the also RANs. Intel used to be the leading company, and AMD was an also RAN. It is like you can say Tata Motors and Ashoka Leyland, right? 80% of the trucks and buses are created by Tata Motors and 20% by Ashoka Leyland, but still Ashoka Leyland is significant, right? So AMD was even less than that. So then it was he and some other Indians together had created a startup called NextGen, and that was bought by AMD, and then that actually changed AMD's fortunes in the chip industry. Okay, now I'll talk about some other people who have made a very different type of contribution to chip industry. That is into, the way to explain it is, earlier electrical engineers used to make draw the actual circuit, different elements, and then how to create chips which will reproduce those results of that thing used to be done elsewhere in the fab. Okay. Now, some of these Indians I'm going to show you, Suhas Patil is one of them, is from IIT Kharagpur, Prabhu Goyal from IIT Kanpur, Rajbir Singh from Roorkee Engineering. They are all in Silicon Valley now. Vinod Khosla, you must have heard of him. He's a leading venture capitalist also now. Um, and okay, some of these people, they developed way to divide the chip making into two processes. One is design, other is fabrication. Earlier it was not so. So today you can sit in Jaipur or Delhi or Bangalore, Pune, wherever you want, Hyderabad, and design most of the advanced chips having a fab. The fab can be in Korea, in Taiwan, in Japan, in China, anywhere, Malaysia, even, or US or Europe. Okay, and if you look at the one of the semiconductor industry experts, IT industry experts told me, if you look at the value in a chip, 80% of the value of the chip is in design and testing. Fabrication is only 20% of the value. And if you want to throw some numbers, today Apple designs, Apple doesn't make. And the chips designed, required by Apple are then produced by TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductors, right? And then there are others who assemble it. Foxconn, etc., assemble it. They assemble it in China, assemble it in Malaysia, Vietnam, and in India nowadays. And what is the market value of Apple? More than $3 trillion. What is the market value of TSMC, which actually makes the chips? $600 billion, 1/5 of that. What is the market value of the Foxconn, which actually assembles it all together and gives you a mobile phone? It is $50 or $60 billion, 1/10 of the TSMC. Okay, so what we are getting of course some by assembling it in Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, wherever we are assembling it. Of course, we are getting employment for lots of people, and especially lots of women, because you need very nimble fingers and all that. So a lot of women, young women, work in this industry, electronics industry, in the assembly part of it. So this is the value chain. Now we have missed the fabrication part. Today, of course, we say we want to build fabrications in India, okay, for strategic reasons. Okay, maybe we may be cut off, or maybe, but we had one in Chandigarh. Unfortunately, there was a fire and it got burnt. Then we tried to recover and all that, but we are there somewhere. That's good enough for making, let us say, our voting machines, or some chips for the ISRO, or some chips for our missiles. That is good enough. Because we are not making those nanometer chips. Micron level chips are okay, and that we can do. Our BEL, our semiconductor complex in Chandigarh, all they can do. But if you want to make chips for your cars, like today, a car in India, forget about Tesla's cars or somebody else's, BYD's cars. Car in India has 1,500 to 2,000 chips in it. So if there is a problem in the chip supply, the whole automotive industry now goes into a problem. And it did go into a problem 2-3 years back. So now one of the reasons Tatas are investing in that, both in fabrication and of course design, because there is lots of, India has the highest number of chip designers in the world. So not only they contributed to separating design and fabrication in Silicon Valley, but India learned those tricks, and literally initially it started with a couple of IITs giving courses in chip design, what is called VLSI design, very large scale integrated circuit design. But now many engineering colleges are producing it. So today the country which has maximum number of chip designers is India. Okay, people say 40,000, 50,000 engineers, okay, who can do chip design. So that is the reason every chip company is in India for their R&D. Unfortunately, we do not have Indian companies who are doing chip design and creating their own chips and selling to the world. We are again become service providers. Just like in the software, we became service providers to run those machines. Here we are designing. So hopefully, once that change will also happen, new startups will come. We will come out with our own chips, etc., and which will make an impact on the market. Now we are doing designing for other, all the Intels and Motorola's and Samsungs and Toshiba, all of them are here. LG, Hyundai, everybody's, all those people who are into chip industry are in India. Okay, using Indian engineers, Texas Instruments, and so on. Okay, so this is the contribution of these people. Basically, they separated fabrication and design. Janak Patel, he's a professor in University of not Illinois, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and he created an algorithm to test a chip. Now, why it is important? And immediately Intel and Motorola bought that patent and all that, and they started using it. Why? Because again, you design a chip, but before you send it for fabrication, which is an expensive business, you want to know whether it works or not. Because you put millions of transistors and all kinds of things in this small place, whether udhar kuch short circuit hai to, some signal is jumping from this channel to some other channel, which is it is not supposed to go, right? Like our traffic, suddenly in one way you'll start seeing two-way traffic, right? Tractors coming ulta on the highways, right? Autos coming on the highways ulta, they will take a U-turn anywhere. All sorts of all these things can happen in a chip. Right? So how do you know this chip will work or this design will work? Some may be manufacturing errors, but some may be design errors. So you need to make sure your design will work. So testing, that is why testing a design is a very, very important thing. And after all this, still while making the chip, you can make errors, you can make mistakes, and something may not work. May not work in, let's say, 80% of the cases. 80% of your chips are not working. 20% are only working. Then you cannot compete. Then another guy who can make 40% good chips, he has to throw away 60% of his chips, is better placed in the market than you. Then if you can actually achieve 60, 70, 80%, so it is actually, people say it is something like the cooking. Cooking, you can read all the recipes you want, right? But you still say, Meri nani jaisi nahi hai, right? Why? Because there is something, some secret ingredient, some special way of doing it, which is not written down, right? Or perfect timing, perfect heating of the oil, whatever it is, she has done. Okay, she knows it, right? So it is actually both an art and a science. Semiconductor chip making is both an art and a science, so it's not easy. It's not that just you buy all the machines and put together and it works. Okay, so lot of R&D, lot of development, lot of continuous work has to go on in that. Okay, so his contribution is in creating some algorithms, software algorithms for testing. Okay, now enough of chips. Now let me talk about some other things. This is a area I call psychotech. That means how psychology and technology mix to produce a better product. Okay, most people think technology means good mathematics, good engineering, this and that, and all put it all together, you get a new technology, a new product. But that's not true. Every major thing that has happened in digital technology has had a psychologist's input in it or even leadership in it. Okay, so for example, the person who thought of the internet was a psychologist. His name is John Licklider. And he was given a position by the Defense Department in US he had some funds, so he said, let me support this research of how computer in Boston can be connected with something in San Francisco, something in Los Angeles, big computers, okay? Can we connect them through telephone lines? So some network can we make of these computers? Okay, and those days computers used to be very expensive, so he tried to say, I'm just trying to save money so that if a Boston computer is not being used and somebody sitting in Berkeley wants to use it, that he can connect to that computer and use it. So he gave that as to get funds. Okay, he had a different idea of how network machines will have different things. As a psychologist, he had seen it differently. So that is how the first network in the late 60s, early 70s came up, called ARPANET. Okay, ARPA was the agency. Earlier it used to be called Advanced Research Project Agency. Now it is called DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, directly only associated with DARPA, with the Defense Department in the US. So, internet idea of networking came from a psychologist. Idea of today, what we say, packet switching in internet. Internet ka matlab kya hai? Means you in a telephone network, one telephone connects to another telephone, especially on the landline, or even if you say mobile. Okay, you are connecting one number to another number, and there is a path, right? Once you connect the two, the path remains the same. In internet, it's not the case. In the internet, every signal gets broken into million pieces, and each piece is thrown in the wind, you can say. So it can take any path. You may be talking to your son, in the same city, but that signal might be going. One packet might be going to South Korea and coming back. Another packet may be going to Los Angeles and coming back, and so on. And then they're finally assembled in that end. So this is called packet switching. As against normal switching in telecom, this is called packet switching. And this, what happens is, that is the reason, in a telephone line, you cut the telephone line, kharab ho gaya na? Right? So that's what our people used to do in the British times, right? Go and cut the telegraph line. Right? So similarly, now you can cut the telephone line or take over the exchange. If you want to disturb the communication system of any country, you do these things, right? But you cannot do that for internet. Because if one node goes down, there are thousands of other nodes. It's a network system. This part of the network is not working, okay, the packet will go to some other place and some other route and come back. So that is why it is very difficult to cut the internet. Okay, to actually stop the internet. There may be other reasons why something is not working. So this packet switching idea again was brought up by another fellow. And he was thinking of something else. There were two people, in fact, there was one in Britain and one in the US. The US guy called Paul Baran was sitting in the RAND Corporation, which is a think tank. And those days people were obsessed with the nuclear war, possibility of nuclear war, US and Soviet Union and all that. So this is 1960-61. He wrote a paper saying our nuclear command structure should become indestructible. If we have one control command center, and if that gets bombed, then how our whole thing will go? We cannot control, we cannot fire. We not even control our missiles. So we should create a system so that even if one of those centers gets bombed, then another path can be used for the command structure. This was his idea. So which became later packet switching and was used actually in the internet. But he was not a technologist that way. In fact, he says he attended one lecture in Boolean algebra and somebody told him 1 + 1 is 0, he walked out. After that, he never went into the class. Okay. So, like this, similarly, a person who later actually implemented the internet thing or encouraged it fully was another fellow called Robert Taylor. Bob Taylor, I met him, I interviewed him, and he is also a psychologist. What are called psychophysicists. They look at effect of physical things on human nervous system and all that. Okay, psychoacoustics and all these things have come up now. Perception studies and all that. Then later he was made in charge by Xerox to work on today what we call PC, an interactive computer. You can talk to a computer, you can click on something, something happens, all these things. So all these were developed by Xerox, by the way. Not by Apple, not by Intel, not by any other company. Xerox set up a research center called PARC, Palo Alto Research Center, near Stanford University, and said, Karo, tumko hum paisa denge. So they gave them free hand. So Bob Taylor gathered several bright engineers and said that, let's see how we create an interactive computer. And Steve Jobs from Apple visited them, stole some of their ideas and used it in his Macintosh. And that's how then Apple became successful. Xerox became a Xerox only, remained a Xerox. And even the fellow who had designed the word processing in Xerox Research Center was later taken by our Bill Gates into Microsoft, which created initially WordStar, GetStar, all that, and then finally Microsoft Word. So all those innovations actually came from a laboratory in Palo Alto, funded by Xerox, but again led by a psychologist. Artificial intelligence, two people who are called founders of artificial intelligence, Newell and Simon, in Carnegie Mellon universities in the late 50s and early 60s. One got a you can say, what is equivalent to a Nobel Prize in computer science. It's called Turing Award. So one of them got a Turing Award also and a Nobel Prize in economics also. And another was a psychologist. These two people created the initial ideas of artificial intelligence, Newell and Simon. So there is a lot of interaction between humanities and especially psychology with technology. Without that, I mean, just with engineering, you cannot come up with many things. Okay. So I'll give you some more examples. Amar Bose is first. That Amar Bose, some of you might know, Amar Bose is his father was an Indian revolutionary in Bengal called Nonigopal Bose, and he was being chased by British CID, so he jumped into a ship which was going to America and he landed in America, right? And there he opened one small radio repair shop in Pennsylvania. This okay, right? I can keep going telling stories. So Amar Bose created these speakers based on what is called he studies into psychoacoustics, that how sound affects our ears. So how can we create systems which will reproduce to our ear the original sound which was in the concert hall. So that is why Bose speakers became revolutionary, whereas all the so-called hi-fi systems were not able to do that. Hi-fi means high fidelity, means loyal to the original. Okay, but now the engineering could not produce that fidelity, whereas he produced it using psychologically, and then he started giving. He was a professor in MIT, and MIT allowed him to set up his company, Bose Corporation, which is a multi-billion-dollar company and is the biggest brand in audio. Not Sony, not Philips. Biggest brand in audio is Bose, even today, right? And he started giving a course in MIT on psychoacoustics, and people say the biggest lecture hall in MIT used to be filled up. There was no standing space. Anand Mahindra told me he tried to attend some of these courses at that time, that there was no standing space in that lecture hall. It was so popular. And he was by the way, very strict professor also. Amar Bose, Arun Netrawali, he is from IIT Bombay. He later went to, he is now Padma Bhushan and all the National Technology President's Medal, they call it. In America, the most prestigious thing is to get President's Medal in Science and President's Medal in Technology. And he's one of the few Indians who have got it. And he got it, and at Bell Labs, his team developed what we today call HD TV, high definition TV. Okay. Each one of these has a story, long stories. And he came from a very poor family. He studied in a municipal school in Mumbai. Okay, and then went to IIT Bombay, got the President's Gold Medal in Bombay, and so on, then went abroad, etc. Anyway, Nikhil Jayant, he did a PhD in IISc in Bangalore, and it is his team he went to Bell Labs later, it is his team which developed MP3. And today, all audio is in MP3, right? In a few megabytes, you can hear concert level music and everything, right? So again, he told me how he explained to me. In fact, he is explaining in this photograph how only certain frequencies affect your ear and other 90% of the frequencies don't affect your ear. So they developed an algorithm to detect those 90% and throw them away. So that's how they were able to compress it. Okay. Fiber optics, this is a very interesting thing. The fiber optics was actually, you can call him a father. Okay, Narendra Singh Kapani, a boy from Dehradun, went to London in 1951 to do a diploma in Imperial College, and then finally ended up doing PhD, and his PhD project was to see whether light can be sent through glass fibers. So he is really the father of fiber optics. 1954 he published the paper, and his idea was to use it for medical purposes. And don't forget, all your endoscopy, laparoscopy, all this scopy means fiber optics. That was his intention. He should have got a Nobel Prize for that, either in medicine or in physics. But he didn't get it. Actually, they gave it to some Chinese engineer for fiber optics because he had used it for communication. Anyway, and there is another long story. I mean, we'll talk about it later. Actually, Krishna Menon met him in UN. He had come to meet, I think, that's a long story. I'll tell you later. And basically, Nehru called him and had a 1 hour discussion with him in Delhi, and said that we want to start defense R&D today, what we call DRDO. At that time it was not DRDO, and I want to make you the director. He was a young fellow who had just finished his PhD, you know. And he even called apparently the secretary, who was at that time, you know, equivalent to UPSC chairman, and said send him an appointment letter. And that appointment letter reached so late, 6 months or 8 months later, that man remained abroad. So we lost one great scientist. Anyway, uh, Desh Deshpande, he worked on optical networking, which is what is the basis of all your submarine cables. These lasers are used for terabytes of data flowing. Okay, so that's all. It's called optical networking. Internet itself, Abhay Bhushan from IIT Kanpur, he sent the first email in 1972 when he was working on a project in MIT. And he created, you can say, the setup for a email, that one computer can communicate with another computer and you can send a message to it. Okay. Pradeep Sindhu from IIT Kanpur again. I mean, he created a new type of, you can say his gear is now used everywhere in the backbone of the internet. Okay, all the plumbing of the internet, which you don't see. You just use, right? You never see the plumbing, right, in any building. But internet plumbing, you can say his company, which later came to be known as Juniper Networks, became a multi-billion-dollar, $20 billion company. Yogen Dalal from IIT Bombay, later at Stanford when he was doing his PhD, he and another PhD student called Carl Sunshine and his professor, Winton Cerf, they three together created the basis for modern internet. The software basis for modern internet, it is called TCP/IP. Transfer Control Protocol, Internet Protocol. Whole means you can have two different, totally different networks, but they can talk to each other. And that requires this protocol. Without that, they cannot talk to each other. And internet just means that. Means inter networks. Connecting different multiple networks. Okay. So TCP/IP was, he was one of the authors of TCP/IP. Artificial intelligence, R. Narasimhan, he was one of the first picks by Baba in TIFR, and he created the first digital computer in India, which was at that time called TIFRAC in 1954, and it was almost as good as any other computer. Okay, and people who created it had never seen a computer. Four of them. He at least was doing PhD in US in mathematics, and he had used a computer. The other four who worked with him in TIFR had not even seen a computer. They were just electronics engineers. And they created the first computer, which was almost as good as any other computer at that time. Raj Reddy is the only Indian who has got a Turing Award, which is, as I said, is considered the Nobel Prize in computer science. And he's for his contribution to artificial intelligence and speech synthesis and recognition and all that, and robotics. He comes very often to Bombay, to India, Hyderabad, many IIT Hyderabad, IIIT Hyderabad. He's closely associated with all of them. This is Arvind Joshi from Pune. Again, he is one of the people who laid the foundation of what is called computational linguistics. That means, can machines translate natural languages? Say Marathi into Hindi, or German into English, or all this. How do you translate a natural language? How do you so-called understand a natural language? Can a machine understand it? Can machine, this? So this is called computational linguistics. It was considered very simple at one time, but it has not been possible. Today, what you see when you say that now some artificial intelligence tools are doing it, they are doing it on a totally different basis, not understanding anything, just on a statistical basis. Okay. So whereas they were trying to think, at that time in 1956, when artificial intelligence first conference took place, in their manifesto, they had thought that they understood how the brain works. They said human brain. So since we know how the computer works, we can replicate all the cognitive capabilities of human brain. That was the birth of artificial intelligence, and very soon they found out they don't understand human brain. It's too complex. It's not a computer. Okay, even a 1-year-old child has more intelligence than any supercomputer. Okay, this is what I was talking about, industrializing software. So Fakir Chand Kohli, who created TCS, is the founder, or you can say, who did all this work. Though he was a power engineer, he is not a computer scientist. He created the power system. If Bombay gets 24/7 power with 220 volts round the clock and has better systems in New York, you can say he is one of the architects of that because he was a power engineer in Tata Power. Then JRD asked him to get into TCS, and he came to TCS and created this whole software company in 1968. And Ram Dore, who followed him. Then P.P. Gupta, he is a very interesting person actually. CMC, as you might know, was started as a public sector undertaking in 76, 77, when IBM left India. And so who is going to maintain IBM computers? So CMC came in to maintain the computers. But then he was a very bright engineer. He said that let's create solutions. So he tried many things. Many of them have important consequences. But the most memorable thing he did was he computerized Indian Railways passenger reservation system. At his own expense, he created it and showed it to the railway board chairman, showed it to Sam Pitroda, Rajiv Gandhi, and all that, and they encouraged him. And that is how we got the most modern, reservation system in the world. And till Aadhaar came, the Indian Railways reservation system was the biggest digital project in the world. And today Aadhaar is the biggest digital project in the world. Keshav Nori, again from IIT Bombay, and then he taught in IIT Kanpur and TIFR. He created a lot of this software engineering framework, which I was telling you about. Narayan Murthy, of course, 1981 he started Infosys. He is a product of IIT Kanpur again. Nandan Nilekani, he also worked with Narayan Murthy in Infi, but today he is more famous for his contribution to Aadhaar, right? And whole world is trying to study that. In telecom, this is a very, very interesting person. Arogysamy Paulraj, I don't know if you have heard of him. He is an Indian Navy officer. He holds the maximum number of patents in 4G and 5G. He is a distinguished professor in Stanford University in telecom. Okay, each one of them has long stories, so I don't have the time now. I'm just going to skim through that. Sam Pitroda, of course, you know, and it is his organization in India called CDOT, which created the digitized, first of all, made a digital telecommunication system, and that's how we started getting STD, right? STD, and then STD booths were set up in the villages to create, all these things. So without digital, you could not have done STD. You had to go and book in the Central Telegraph Office, okay? So, and that created the condition. The two, you can say, basic organizations which are contributed to the development of telecom and hence IT, because IT sits on telecom. One is CDOT, created by Pitroda, and second is ISRO. Okay, so most people don't recognize these two contributions, government organizations which created that infrastructure. Bishnu Atal, PhD from IIC, he's again in Bell Labs. He created an algorithm which is used in every single mobile phone today. Every single mobile phone uses Atal's coding system. Manmohan Sondhi, again PhD from IIC Bangalore. He created a software for what is called echo cancellation. Many times in telecom networks, when you say something, you hear the echo. And this happens many times. So he created what are called echo cancellers, which became a multi-billion-dollar industry now. This is, unfortunately, on a Women's Day, I am able to show only one woman in this, but things are changing because her contribution was in the early 80s. Neera Singh, Neera Tandon, she was, both were IIT Kanpur graduates. Rajendra Singh is in fact from Rajasthan, from a village called Lunaich. And the husband and wife, when he had finished his PhD, she was writing her master's thesis, and they had some spare time, so she wrote up a software. She wrote up a software, and she was a chemical engineer, whereas he is an electrical engineer, PhD किया था वो. दोनों बैठ के वो software लिखे, and actually first she had written it and he improved on it, and that led to the mobile, 80% of the mobile networks in North America. They designed it, and they became billionaires also. Okay, and he didn't know where to get his checks from first when he sent it software to somebody. That fellow said, okay, how much should I pay you for that? He said, no, just try it. He said, no, I can't, I have to pay you. Tomorrow you will file a suit against me because in America everybody sues everybody. Right? So he said, tomorrow you will sue me. So, no, I have to pay you for this. So, what is your company name, address? He said, I don't have a company. so, so he said, okay, I'm giving $1,500. Is that okay? He said, okay, because those days PhD scholars used to get $200 per month. Okay, so 1,500 scholars was big time money. So he said, okay. So then he said, what do you do? Where is your company? So create a company then. So he created a company called LCC, and which designed the networks, 80% of the networks in North America and even many in South America. And LCC stands for Lunage Consulting Company. This is another very interesting person, Bala Manian. He is brother of Narayan Wagul, which you might have heard of, who was the chairman of ICICI. Okay, that he is actually a mechanical engineer, and his patents led to all these computer graphics in Hollywood. So he's the first Indian who was given an Oscar in '99 for his technical contributions to Hollywood cinematography. Theoretical computer science is very, very mathematical. Most computer scientists also don't understand it. It's very highly mathematical. But if you look at theoretical computer science today, you will find at least 10 stars, superstars who are Indian. He is one of them, Ravi Kannan from IIT Bombay, Rajiv Motwani from IIT Kanpur. In fact, it is he, you can say, created Google. He wrote the fundamental paper along with two other guys, students, Sergey, Brin and Larry Page. And they used to come to him saying, we need your help, we want money, we want to put some more servers and all that. So he, from some other funds, they were not his students. So he used to give them money, and then later they wrote a fundamental paper which became the foundation of Google. Rajiv Motwani. Again, so all these people I'm mentioning now, they got all the highest prizes in computer science. There are 3 major prizes in computer science. Nevan Lena Prize, Fulkerson Prize, and Gödel Prize. So these individuals have got, you can say each one of them has got either one or sometimes 2 of these things. He is a Gödel Prize winner, Motwani. He was a professor in Stanford, unfortunately passed away in an accident in his own home swimming pool. Narendra Karmarkar, IIT Bombay, he created an algorithm which changed entire airline industry. Okay, and Umesh Vazirani is one of the founders of quantum computing. He's a IIT Delhi product. Okay, he's at Berkeley University. Madhusudan, he's another from MIT. He's a student of Vazirani. Sanjeev Arora, Princeton University. All these people have got either the Gödel or the Fulkerson Prize. Love Grover from IIT Delhi, he created again another algorithm called Grover algorithm, which is very important in quantum computing. So today we are all talking about quantum computing a lot, right? Every minister and MP also says quantum nowadays. Okay. So, but basically the idea is that today all your banking and financial networks and everything, stock market, everything is encrypted. And also military communication is highly encrypted. And those encryptions will break down very easily if you have a quantum computer. What a normal computer will take millions of years to crack, a quantum computer can do it in almost negligible time. So that is why everybody is putting money into quantum computing. Then of course, then more money will come into how to prevent that from happening, right? Chor police, chalta hi rehta hai. Manindra Agarwal, he is a pure Indian product, BTech from IIT Kanpur, MTech from IIT Kanpur, PhD from IIT Kanpur. He and his 2 students, who were BTech students, hit the headlines of New York Times in 2001-2. And because they had cracked one theoretical computer science problem and they sent a paper, and I was there in Stanford University when this paper came, and everybody was very excited. How can such a high-level work be done in India, and that too with some undergraduate students and all that. So Manindra Agarwal and his 2 students, Nitin Saxena and Neeraj Kayal, they wrote that fundamental paper. Subhash Khoth is another person from IIT Bombay who has again now hit the headlines. So those were all theoretical computer science people. Now there is only 1 or 2 more people I'm going to flash control theory is a very complicated thing, and the only person we have from India who has made, on whom textbooks are written is somebody, Professor Vidyasagar, who was you can say, some sort of child prodigy in a sense. Okay, at hardly 20, 18 or 20, he got his PhD in electrical engineering and from Canada, and he came back. Of course, President Kalam encouraged him to come back, and he joined DRDO, and it is his team which created what is called the control law or control surface law for Tejas aircraft. Okay, that is totally indigenous, and people have tested it, and even all the people who driven other foreign fighters say that it is as good or better than all the foreign control systems. And so because he became, Kalam made him the director of the new lab called Center for Artificial Intelligence and Robotics, and this was in 1980s, by the way. So artificial intelligence was known, it had just come into being in the 80s, and he was the director of that. Satellite communication, this is another Indian Pradman call from Bombay. Literally, VSAT technology was created by him. All of us know the small VSAT terminals which are used for ATMs and offices and all that. Storage, this is Praveen Chowdhury from IIT Delhi. He got the National President's Medal, as I was telling you. Two major awards in US are Technology Medal and Science Medal. So he got that for creating what is called magnetic storage. You see, we all talk about computer chips having more and more power and costing less and less. But nobody talks about memory. Memory, which used to be kilobytes and megabytes, today you are carrying gigabytes, right? Right, in your pocket, literally in your pocket, right? This small thumb drive, right? 16 GB, gigabytes. Earlier, a 2 megabyte for IBM computer was as big as this, 2 megabytes. And today 16 GB I'm carrying in my pocket, right? I brought my slides in this. And this is a guy who created it. Thumb drives were created by 4 people. This was one of them, Sanjay Mehrotra. He studied for some time in BITS Pilani and then went to US, and today he's the chairman of Micron, which is one of the first semiconductor companies to come and start work in Goa. No, I'm sorry, in Gujarat. Information theory, this is Tom Kailath from Pune Engineering, and he's a very, very top-notch distinguished professor in Stanford in telecom, and he's one of the leading people in information theory. That's about it. This is all the things just to like say what is its been impact on India. Services exports 341 billion, and we're importing also some services, $178 billion. This is 23-24 figures, right? Software services alone is $199 billion last year. This year we're supposed to cross 200. GCCs, which I mentioned to you, that all these foreign companies, MNCs setting up their R&D, their revenue itself is about $44 billion now, and it is expected to go up to 100 billion in another 5-6 years. Just R&D services. So compare that to net energy imports, which is about 140 billion. Now electronics imports, we are importing $90 billion worth of electronics and exporting about 20 billion. Okay, we are yet to like go a lot, long way in this. And as far as how Indian digital revolution has changed life here in communication, in transaction, in banking, in stock market, in commodity markets, in the UPI, digital payment system, in governance, in manufacturing, no modern manufacturing can happen without IT and robotics. If you go to Tata Motors, even in Dharwad, which is a small town in Karnataka, they use robots to do all the welding in their factories. Okay, and trade, of course, e-commerce and all these, how even companies trade with each other, government, how procurement systems, all that is all digital now. International trade, lot of it is digital. All these customs systems, everything has been digitized now. Lot of it. Medicine, everything is digital now. Everything depends on that. Your sonography, your CT scans, your MRI scans, your blood samples, all that, and everything is now digital. Education, we have seen what happened during COVID, how everything had to become online, and today we have, We can listen to so many webinars and so many things online, which was not accessible at all, right? Unless you sit into either RIC or IIC in Delhi, somewhere, few people could attend those seminars. Today you can sit at home and attend a seminar. And education has changed greatly. So that is it. Thank you very much. These are some reference materials. Uh, yeah, sure.
Couple of questions and then lunch because late ho raha hai. So we have been through a long tapestry, like an entire history of the contributions. A lot of it we would not have known about the Indians, how they have kind of not only won the Silicon Valley, but shaped the entire modern technology in the world that we all use and kind of use every day. So thank you. Can you have another round of applause for our speaker today? Uh, don't want to keep you away from lunch for too long, so we will take one question here, and then maybe we can have a conversation over the lunch. As sir will be here, so maybe one question. So, Savan, can we have the mic sent to the gentleman there? You have the mic? हाँ, सावन के पास है। जाओ।
Thank you very much, sir. Do you think that these chips and these signals were used during pre-Vedic period in India through human beings and all the arrows and all that? Is there any study? How the transmitting system was there through arrows and the Brahmastra and human beings that time? Is it?
See, these are all in epics, right? In epics and mythology. So there is no evidence, material evidence for these things. So some may be through imagination. Like people have always wondered, can I, both two people thought the same idea, or somebody I was going to say and you said it, that type of thing. So people have speculated on this, that how two brains can communicate. Is there some other way than just language and all that? But it is an area which I am not knowledgeable about.
I think so. If we can take one more question, so Savan, you can just give the mic and then we move.
One more thing I just want to add here. Even when we talk about Anu, Paramanu and the atomic theories in India, what Kanad Sutra, Vaisheshikas wrote and all that, and how they explained the matter, evolution of matter, the multiple, what you call diversity we see, that was based on a philosophical, metaphysical system. It was not based on actually doing an experiment with atoms or molecules. That only came in the modern Europe in the 18th, 19th century. And then, of course, our scientists like Bose and Saha and Raman and all that, and today we're working on that.
Thank you for this wonderful thing. I'm a retired physicist, Sudhir Raniwala. I missed some point here. You started with a very rich culture of mathematics in India, and then you talked about the achievements of large number of individuals, all achievements made in the US. What has that to do with the title, How Indians Won the Silicon Valley? In the sense, is there a pattern? Can you,
Okay.
am I missing something?
Yeah. Okay, good question. See, number one, actually, nobody has won anything. Okay. So to say that we have won, there is no race that in which we or anybody else has won. It is an endeavor in which lot of people have contributed, but the purpose of talking about this to especially younger people is what people trained, Indian brains are no less than anybody else. I mean, this is in fact, Professor Radham Narasimha, one of the leading aerospace engineers, told me, because he researched a lot in the aerospace in India, contributed to a lot of aerospace work in India, but also when he was in Caltech, he said, I was wondering, why is it that, I mean, I didn't find, any difference in the different nationalities. There were Vietnamese, there was Indians, there were Americans, there were British, Russians, Germans, and so on, and all doing top-notch work. So nothing is wrong with the Indian brain. And to an extent, despite whatever problems we have in our education system, still many of our young people are able to make scientific breakthroughs. Despite all the societal issues or even weaknesses in our education system. So this is something which is, you can say, inspirational to younger people, that we can also do it. Nothing is wrong with us. Why I am saying this is, there is a lot of inferiority complex. I know when I was studying physics, I thought that the Nobel laureates and the top-notch physicists, theoretical physicists, used to read Feynman lectures and read about, forget the older generation, all these people, Schwinger and Feynman and this and that, all these people as literally like gods. But when I went to US and I was attending all these seminars, they were participating in conferences, they were like very much human beings. Right? So, that kind of exposure, this is just to like give a little bit of exposure to younger people, to say that you can also do it. And these people were able to do it in a different environment, though they were trained here, because technology development requires an ecosystem. Mathematics is different. Even, of course, all intellectual endeavors need an ecosystem. You cannot have a great musician unless there is a Jaipur Atroli Gharana or something, where you have a whole system of teachers who are teaching you, right? So, but relatively speaking, we have produced lots of great mathematicians, but not so much technology. So far, we have been consumers of technology. But now that there is a market, and now there is a globalization, that whatever a startup can serve the global market. So if you are saying, I'm going to serve the Indian market, that does not work. Because your customers in Indian market may be very few. And maybe nobody will even back you financially for that. But if your product is going to serve the world market, at a very advanced level or even at a very low level, what is called serving the bottom of the pyramid. But it is an innovation, then there are people ready to back it, financially back it now. Earlier there were no backers. So you had to come from an established business family to do any business. So today that's not so. You can have startups. So today, interestingly, hundreds of startups have come in what are called deep technologies, in space, in rocketry, in AI, in India. And that is a good sign. Hundreds is not enough. You need tens of thousands of those, because only very few of them will succeed. But there is a beginning. And same thing, I said that there is only one lady who I showed here, but in the last, when we studied in the 70s, there are hardly any girl students in the classroom. Even in physics, forget engineering. Now today, when I go to give talks in IITs or engineering colleges or science colleges, literally majority are girls. In fact, in one college I had gone, MSc Physics and all these chemistry students I was addressing, and I saw only one boy sitting there. And the head of the department told me, even that boy has joined only this year. So the more women participate in STEM education, obviously, like they will contribute, and we'll see more entrepreneurs.
Very good story for the International Women's Day. May I just request your patience for a couple of more minutes? And in case, I'm closing. So I was saying, in case someone is leaving, lunch is there at the convention center and is served. But now may I request our director of the RIC to please come on stage and facilitate Shivanand Kanavi ji and our chairperson Umesh Mohan Sahe ji. May I request the bouquets to be brought on stage? Sir, आगे.
Yes, sir. Sorry, I spoke too much.
Nobody has gone out except for some people.
Thank you. May I please give a memento on behalf of the RIC to the guest speaker?
Thank you. We are honored and enlightened.
My pleasure.
I request a bouquet is given to the chairperson, Umesh Mohan Sahe, also president of the Rajasthan All India Services Pension Association. As our speaker said, mentioned today, like in software, like in any services or hardware, you need to conceptualize, design, test, and fabricate everything. And this event also took a lot of people to help and do that. So let me start by thanking, first of all, again, our speaker and our guest of honor, but also Rajan Mathurji and Naren Sisodia and the entire team and people from the Rajasthan All India Services Pension Association. The team, Director R.C. Goel, who has been heading and always encouraging, and the team from the Rajasthan International Center for helping putting this together. But last but not the least, and again last thing just before lunch, the audience, because when Sisodia ji had come to us, he was very worried about how many people would come, and he was like, maybe if 70 come, it would be a good start. And today we had an absolute full house. So can you have a round of applause for the entire audience? And they're all here right till the end. Lot of food for thought, but now actual food. So food is served in the convention hall for everyone who has been participant here of the RIC. So please join us for lunch. Thank you very much. It's on the ground floor, and there will be people to guide you down. We go just down the lift from the ground floor. Thank you, sir, and thank you very much again.